show me all the blueprints. It's a huge success.
I came across a really, really interesting business opportunity.
Beyond the Blueprints. Hi, it's Cailey Heaps from Beyond the Blueprints. Today I'm really excited to be talking to Zoë Pawlak. Zoë is a very well celebrated Canadian artist who's based on the West Coast, and we talk about her art, her life journey from being a hippie but working in a very sort of bougie world, her journey to sobriety, how she feels service is so important to a fulfilled life, and lots of other interesting topics. So take a listen. We hope you enjoy. Hi, Zoë. Welcome to Beyond the Blueprints. So this is the first time I've interviewed someone that I've only met in the last 10 minutes. So I'm excited because usually I know the person. I'm like, oh, you remember that time? Yeah. So here we go. Yeah. So we are meeting because you're coming to Toronto to do a show at the Lobby, which we're excited about. But tell me what was your journey into the world of art? How did you arrive at being such a prolific Canadian painter?
Wow, that's a hefty intro. Thank you. I started painting in high school. I was pretty ambitious about it, and so I ended up going to a fine arts high school, grades 10, 11, 12, and I studied in South America and Mexico a little bit, and then did it in post-secondary as well, and it's been my full-time career since I was 24 years old.
Amazing.
Yeah.
I'm not going to ask how old you are now, but I know you have children.
I'm 42.
You're 42.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's a pretty long 18-year career.
Yeah.
And when you just came into my house, you said, "Oh, you must be besties with Kim Dorland," because my house is full of Kim's work. And then you went on to say something that I thought was so interesting, and that was that you were shocked when you found out Kim was a man.
Yeah. When I was studying at Concordia, we all thought for a hot minute that Kim Dorland was a woman. And so for those of us who were young, early lady painters, we were so excited that a Canadian female was doing such audacious, badass, interesting, radical work. Yeah. And God bless Kim for his journey, and I'm such a fan of his work. Yeah. But there was a moment of like, oh man, because there's so few pioneers in our field, and when we do find them, it's just, I love like Sherry Boyle's work, and there's just some Canadian female painters that we got so excited about in art school when their star was rising, and it was just so inspiring.
And do you have Canadian female painters now that you watch and you think, good on them, they are changing the landscape of art in Canada?
Yeah, I mean, I look to a lot of different painters at all times, and especially when we were younger, right? We were trying to imagine into what it was that we were going to become. Yeah. And I think it's really important for young people to have models. Representation matters. And so when I was starting to see some of the young British artists at the time, for example, not just Canadians, but it was so important for me to understand the history of that work and the history of painting. And, for example, I love the figurative work of Alice Neal, and she's given me the audacity or the courage to make figurative work over a 20-year period. It's not always the most saleable or popular, and Alice Neal had her first retrospective in New York in the 80s. She was only recognized very late in life. And so that's an example of someone whose career I've followed, and it's been symbolic of a lot of meaningful pivots that I've taken, or paths that I've stayed true to, because I've had a clear example set out before me,
And do you find that that it's easier for men to make a name for themselves in the world of art?
Oh, I mean, it's not gendered in that sense. It's not so. I think what I look at is I'm always looking at where we think we are and where we really are in terms of data. So as you probably know, in the last couple of years, for example, Forbes has reported that 2 to 3% of funding for investors went to female-owned and operated companies, right? Yes. We know this is fact. Yeah. And so when we think we're somewhere and then we're actually here statistically, my concern is always about paying attention to that gap.
And how do you close the gap?
Yeah, exactly.
We see it in business. I mean, it's so obvious. But.
Yeah. So how many young women are going to art school, and then how many men are represented in galleries, and where is that gap, and how can we close it? And I think especially in a country like Canada, it's been really important to me to have pioneered in certain ways. That my career is non-traditional. Aside from being represented for 7 years in a traditional sense in New York, I've represented and sold all my own work throughout an 18-year career.
Wow. That's
and I
unusual
have-
that you've done that.
Yeah, and I
Very
have
few
a-
people have the courage to do that. I'd
Yeah.
say.
It's, you know, I've done it for myself and to support my family, and because I wanted to create a career where the work itself wasn't only creative, but also the model that we use for business. So for example, even the collaboration that we're doing together with the lobby, it's like, it really suits exactly how I've worked, in a sense of being like, innovative and a bit different and functioning outside of the gallery system, etc. So
Good for you.
Yeah.
Okay, so I've read about you. Now I feel like a stalker. I understand that you've had a journey to sobriety.
Yeah.
That is now, you were probably at the forefront of that. It's becoming more common
Yes,
now.
yes.
So can I ask, how did you arrive in that place, and
Yeah,
when was
for
it?
sure. Yeah. So it's important what you just brought up. I think that about a decade ago, there was 2 people creating a contemporary language for sobriety, and that was really new even a decade ago.
Yeah.
So Laura McCohen and Holly Whitaker were on the forefront of creating a contemporary language outside of the AA system that people were able to step into.
Yeah.
We're also seeing programs now like Tommy Rosen's Recovery 2.0. There's many now.
Yeah.
But not that long ago, it was kind of different. And
There's a stigma attached to it, for sure.
yeah, exactly. And
judgment.
so I feel very fortunate that I've been able to have a lot of those conversations early on with people who are struggling, and still to last week, like just I'm able to, I think because I have a slightly public facing career, and I appear as though I've always had it together.
Yeah.
I think that combination, that like crossroads, that crux where people are struggling on the inside and then the outside sort of seems like it's all got it together. Has made me an approachable person for people to talk to about their struggle.
And what was your path there? I mean, you don't have to speak about it.
It's fine. It's just, I kind of answer that question in a number of different ways. Like someone asked me last night, they were like, so you were just like an occasional drinker, like a little bit too much? And I was like, oh no, like I had to retire. Like it was time. Like I was like, I was too good. Yeah. And at some point, like even if you're, excellent at, like I was never a good drinker. And so like, you can't see that clearly until you're like when I was a couple years sober, I was like, oh, I was never good at this. Like, and I heard, I can't remember if it was Holly Whitaker or Laura McCohen saying like, I'm good at a lot of things.
Yeah.
But I'm not good at this. And it's really, there's like a relief on the other side of like, I don't wear it like a ball and chain. I think of that the second I got to say that out loud, that I self-identified this way, there was like liberation on the other side and a freedom that I've been experiencing ever since.
Yeah. And what a great model for other people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I would say.
Yeah.
Okay, so when you arrived, you gave me Vessels and Muses, which is an oracle deck that you've designed.
Yeah.
I am going to pull out a card. Can you tell me what it means?
Yes, of course.
Oh, gracious.
So
It's been a bit of a week for me. So
Yeah.
I'm really curious what's going to happen here. So I just take one. Is that what I do?
Yeah, so you would shuffle them, and
we can shuffle these.
what you're opening is a 40-card deck of my favorite 40 paintings over the span of my 18-year career, and it actually also includes my first piece of published writing. So in there's a booklet. It's my own writing, and I have an expanded meaning on each card. So, for example, if you pick the word freedom, there's going to be an expanded meaning, which is included in the booklet. Included in the booklet is also a journal prompt. So when and if you wanted to incorporate journaling into your routine, it gives every user an opportunity to have some guidance. Because what I heard from people, because I've been journaling since I was 12 years old, and it's been like a number one thing, especially in my sobriety, for giving me clarity and direction.
Yeah.
And I hear from a lot of people that it's hard to stick to it. So that's why I created that.
Good for you.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm going to pull a card.
Okay.
And I'm not going to read what the book says. I'll do that privately
Yes,
afterwards.
yes.
But you are going to tell
case you
me
cry.
what it means,
Yeah,
right? Okay.
for sure, yeah.
So I'm going to pull this one. I don't know why it's speaking to me. And it says openness.
My mom pulled that card yesterday.
Oh.
So,
And beautiful painting. by
thank
the way.
you. Yeah, so the figure is, for those of you listening, the figure is sprawled open. There's the heart center that's open with a lot of color and light. Openness, as the word indicates, just indicates that it's a time to stay open. I've been listening to and reading a lot of Michael Singer's work, and pretty much my favorite book is The Untethered Soul. And when we encounter anything in our life that hits the stuff inside of us, our job is we want to close. I want to.
It's just like very topical.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I want to close my heart. And so our job is to stay open, even in the face of adversity and discomfort. And when we, and that card, the extended writing as well, encourages us to, she's actually leaning on support. And so what it's doing is encouraging us to find support so that we can stay open.
Well, I am going to try really hard to stay open. I find that 2024 has been a year of challenges, let's just say.
Yeah.
So I'm looking forward to 2025, and I'm just going to really try and stay open for the next
Yeah.
little while until all
Yeah.
positivity comes back.
Yeah.
So what prompted you to do the Oracle deck? Was it, well, I don't want to put words in your mouth.
Yeah, so I have, for those of you who are not familiar with my work, I've had a long career of doing custom work for interior designers and private clients. And so my work has been very expensive, largely collected privately in residential spaces.
Yeah.
While some of my work is collected in public collections, the majority of it lives in residential spaces. And so it's meant a very quiet career for a very extroverted person. And then it's meant a very commercial career for someone who's deeply a hippie in my roots. My soul is like to be for the people, about the people,
Love
with
that.
the people. And recently in my sobriety, like we're called to service. And I believe that the thing that's missing for most of us, if we have a sense of, oh my God, my life has no purpose, or, oh, this isn't fulfilling me, we're actually wired for service. We're actually called to be of service.
I absolutely agree with that.
And we don't know, a lot of people don't know that though. So, like they volunteer at a soup kitchen and suddenly they're like, whoa, dude, why is this this is feeding this ancient place in me? And what it is that we're meant to be for each other.
Yeah.
And so I wanted to find a way to be of service, but I never wanted to make prints of my work either. I wanted to sell something at a lower price point. So those are 64 Canadian, for example. And it grants people access to my work in a way that they wouldn't otherwise have access because it's been so expensive my whole career,
I feel like we should sell these at the lobby. What a
We do.
beautiful
We do.
gift. Oh, good.
Yes.
Yay. Yay.
I think we're starting this week.
Okay,
Yeah.
good. The acts of service piece, I think, is really, really important, and I want to keep talking about it a little bit. So I think that's what feeds your soul, is helping other people more than anything in the world. I have 3 children, and I think you have how many?
2.
You have 2. And
Yeah.
what age?
18 and 16.
Okay, so I have an 18-year-old and twin 14-year-olds.
Yeah.
And the thing I've always said to them is I don't, the way that I will judge you as a human being, I'm always going to love you, but the way that I'll judge you is if you can be kind to everybody. And that's all I ask of you. And I find it really interesting to watch them now. They're all on these self-guided journeys of giving back to other people without me saying anything to them. My 18-year-old moved to Halifax to go to Dalhousie and independently reached out to CFCC, the Community Food Centers organization, and began a volunteer job there. No conversation with me. And I thought, you know what, that to me is like one of the proudest moments as a mother. If we can as a society impart that on the next generation, I think something was lost during COVID about caring as much for other people. So maybe we can all just take a beat and focus on that again.
Yeah.
And what do you do? I mean, this is obviously a very giving act. Do you have other habits in your life or commitments that allow you to give back?
Yeah, I mean, one of the most fulfilling things I've ever done is coach girls basketball.
Oh, yeah.
I really love ages like grade 6, 7. By the time they get to about grade 8, they're better than me. And so I'm like tall and enthusiastic and I can like run fast, but I'm not, I play like a scrappy 14-year-old. And so once they get to a certain age, like I can't keep up and I don't have a lot to instruct them besides like life skills. So that's always been fun. And, girls in sports, I mean, sports pretty much saved my life. So You know, I came back to adult sport at the age of 35 when I decided to quit drinking as well. And it was really powerful for me. So girls in sports, I love anyone playing sports, kids playing sports. It's just so powerful.
There's so much research about it too, that women who play team sports end up being leaders in their chosen careers.
For sure.
It's a question I always ask people when I'm interviewing. So if anyone's about to interview with me and watches this, I always ask if they played team sports.
Yeah.
Because it speaks to teamwork, it speaks to mindset, and a focus outside of just self, which I think is really important.
Yeah, it's also been really fascinating to return to adult sport. Like one of the goals I had for myself a couple of years ago was to play pickup with men, because I'd been playing in a women's league in Montreal, and while it was really challenging and for a lot of reasons, it was even harder to be on the court with men. And I had such a blast, and it was really good for them too to learn how to play with me, because they had to modify the way that they played, they had to modify the way that they checked me, and there was a lot of opportunity for them to teach me things which I asked of them, you know. And they created a safe space for me, and it was really, really fun. It was I think in adult team sport, when you're more conscious and you're a bit aware, you're able to see the metaphors a lot more clearly. And you bring a lot of your garbage there. And I think what was really fun about it was that it was extremely humbling. Like no one cares who you are in the outside world.
Yeah.
They're like, oh, cool, you made $1 million. Learn to dribble the fucking ball. Like you're not like, I don't care what kind of socks you have. Like get on the court. And like, so that was, it was really good for me to go to something a couple times a week that I was the worst at, you know,
like
and still
my tennis game.
Like still step on the court and show up, you know.
And did it improve your skill playing with the co-ed or with men?
Yeah, it improved. For sure, it improved my confidence. It pushed me. It's similar to I've been cold plunging now for 5 years. And so, again, a little bit before it became super popular in these last couple of years.
You're a pioneer,
Yeah, well, it's just we were bored and it was like COVID and we were like, what are we going to do? So we started stepping into the water, and I think the connection there is that it doesn't always exactly matter what you're doing. I think that you let physical things move through your body and be your teacher is like extremely important.
And what draws you to cold plunging? Like what impact does it have to you?
So for that, it started out as community, camaraderie, fellowship, relationship. We'd get in the water and we'd be staying there for about 10 minutes and just go around the circle and tell each other what we were thankful for, and then we'd get out of the water. Wow. It was like really fun. And then my mom is the head of Parks and Recreation, was the head of Parks and Recreation for our community, and my dad was a teacher. So like I have these tendencies towards like community organization and like
nature.
They always say that I'm like the sort of like the informal head of Parks and Recreation for our group of friends. So the fungineer. So I've stepped down from that position so avidly, but it was just really powerful. I did the last 30 days by myself because I was scared to go alone. And so I think you learn a lot of things like overcoming fear, consistency, resiliency. For me, it had nothing to do. I'm not vain enough to worry about my brown fat. I don't even know what that is. Yeah. Or like my mitochondria. I don't know what we have. But
it just feels good.
Yeah. Well, just lying under the rain with your face up towards the sky, like at 6 a.m. by yourself, swimming with a seal is like I think it's like a really weird and radical practice. And because I'm a hippie and I'm frugal, I'm always looking for like free experiences. I'm looking for a way to be in experiences that change my state outside of like the cultural norms. So attending really bougie, expensive, like loud things really doesn't appeal to me. So
you're not an indoor cold plunger. You're not going.
Well, I can't. I just have trouble with. Yeah, I have trouble with that. I think it's like a private spiritual experience. I believe that we heal in community. Like in my recovery program, we're in community. I teach yoga, for example, on Thursday mornings to people in early recovery, and I always say to them like, you're in an individual experience. It's your breath, your experience, your body. Like you're not looking around the room at anybody else, but we're also healing in community, in relationship with one another. And I think if you get too isolated, it can be really not great as well, you know?
Well, as humans, we need to be around other humans.
For sure. Yeah.
I have a house in Newfoundland, so we plunge there. The water
Yes.
temperature is like 5 degrees.
Yes, yes, it is. Yeah.
And it is the most, if I could choose one physical act that awakens my body, it is by far cold plunging.
Yeah.
I've never done it in an indoor environment. It's
Yeah.
always been outdoor as well, but I don't know that I would do it in Lake Ontario. That's where I sort of struggle.
Oh, what about it? Like,
I just worry about like pollution and I don't know.
oh, you just close your eyes and like close. Yeah, just go for it. A little dirt
Just
never
go.
hurt, you know.
Okay,
like,
that's true.
I'm a big fan of like, and also if it's cold enough, I don't know. There's not like.
You're right. It's
Yeah.
probably not going to breed as much.
Yeah.
And okay, so earlier you said playing basketball in Montreal, but I believe you live in Vancouver now.
I
So how did that come to be?
Yeah, we wanted our kids to learn French, and so we spent some time there. We went to go for 1 year, and we spent 4 years there, and then have been back for 5 years. And yeah, the configuration of our families shifted and changed, but our kids are back in Vancouver, and we're.
And I love Vancouver. Is Vancouver's
My
home?
parents are there, and they're young and vivacious and alive and wonderful, but they're going they're aging there, and so we wanted to be closer, and they're just so much fun. So yeah,
Oh,
my
that's
brothers
so
are on
nice.
remote islands and as well on the West Coast. So just
So
my
you're all
family.
kind of hippies.
Yeah. Oh yeah. There's yes. My dad has we're
Say
a
what you
little,
were gonna
a
say.
little sailboat that he like tinkers. Yeah. We're my brother lives off of the land. Yeah. We're all. That's our roots for sure.
Interesting. That must be like quite a cross section to go from being raised as hippies, if
Yeah.
I can say,
Yeah.
to working in a very affluent industry where you're selling art to private residences. I would think that those are two very different lifestyles that you've had to embrace.
Yeah, so I physically grew up in suburbia, but we camped from May to September. Like, so the soul of our family, we come from like a really social justice roots, and my grandfather helped a lot of people in poverty throughout and my extended family. So that's the roots of where we come from. So it's not just hippie, it's like about class diversity, social justice, etc. And then I was raised in suburbia, which I always felt uncomfortable for me, the most uncomfortable actually, which is why I went and lived in South America and Mexico for a bit. But then what you just brought up is really important. It's a place that I have a lot of struggle. And the way to answer that question is that I've spent my career trying to alchemize those two things, like bring those things together. So I sell these really bougie, really high-end, very expensive, very exclusive,
Beautiful.
beautiful, one-of-a-kind, precious things.
Pieces. Yeah.
So it's an $80 canvas and it's a $10,000 painting.
Yeah.
What a weird career. And my work itself is very physical, very spiritual, very like it's dirty, it's gross. I essentially alchemize it, take something from like that's channeled through me, and I create content that is from a very personal place, hopefully speaking on behalf of the larger collective. So that's a very weird job.
Very personal.
Very
Yeah.
personal, and then you monetize it to like a very small group of people.
Yeah.
And so it's true. I spend a lot of time with like people with a ton of money. That's the easiest way to say it.
And that doesn't make them bad people. I'm not suggesting that. It's just a different background.
It's just a very specific, it's just a really interesting career. Like, and what matters, I think what the question is asking is like the place where those things meet. And also like wanting young artists to thrive. Like I've spent a lot of time mentoring young artists and wanting them to know that they should raise their prices, or I want to see them like killing it and making a living and expanding and growing and innovating. And in order to do that, you need resources.
Yeah.
So I believe in all of those things, but it's caused quite a bit of tension or pain or struggle or indecision at times in terms of my soul and my path.
Some internal turmoil, I would expect.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Well, you're doing it well. Like
Thanks.
on the surface, it seems
Thank
like
you.
you're doing it very well.
Thank you.
When you are creating a new piece, where do you find inspiration?
So usually I'm creating something within a context. So I'm creating bodies of work. Sort of have two ways of answering that question. One is I've done over 650 custom pieces. That's like a really specific process where I'm doing deep listening with the client, sometimes with brands. I'm listening to what it is that they're saying, and then we're making something on their behalf. And so I am creating work out of like inspired by previous works that I've made. So that's like one process. It's very involved. And once we're done being involved, then I paint.
Okay.
And so I'm very free, if clients are like, can I see it along the way? Or can I have I'm like, no, we're doing,
once I'm
our
in it.
part is done. You want a custom piece, it's green, it goes over your couch, great. But like after that, I work alone. And so that's custom work. And then the other work that you'll see, for example, at the lobby in this show, I made 22 new pieces for the lobby. What you're going to see is a figurative show downstairs, and upstairs you're going to see abstracted vessels mostly, or just like purely abstract work. And the figurative work, like the card that you pulled, is all autobiographical work. They're always one-off. I don't make custom pieces about them. They're like a song, if you're thinking about a song that's about a breakup.
Yeah.
Again, reiterating that you're going through like a singular experience, but you're trying to speak to heartbreak as a whole.
Yes.
So your aim is to speak to the collective, and that universal feeling of what it is to long for things or whatever it is. So each title lightly alludes to what the piece is about, but the piece isn't complete until the viewer experiences it, and your experience of it is what matters. And the alchemy of like what I've created in a visual field, and then what your emotional relationship to that.
It must be so interesting to watch someone consume your art and see if their experience is what you felt as you were creating it. I would imagine there would be very different experiences depending on who it is in their life, that moment in their life.
Yeah, for sure. And that's like one of the reasons why I wanted to have a career where I was really connected to the end consumer and to my clients, because not only because I wanted to have high touch, like I wanted to offer really good customer service and client care and love, but I wanted to be like connected to them and their story, and like come over for dinner after it, lived in their house. Nice. Or, I'm really, my clients often become my friends, and vice versa. My friends often can collect my work, and it's really important. I have like the most extroverted career you could possibly have for an artist, while still maintaining enough like space and peace to be quiet enough and contemplative enough to create quality work.
To be in that creative mode. Are your children artistic?
Yeah, in their different ways. Yeah. It's interesting. Like one of the things people have said to me, for example, is, "Oh my gosh, your kids must be so proud of you," And my kids respect me. Like my daughter, especially, she's just moved away to Montreal this year. So, and my son is, he's more introverted, and he's more into like film and TV and, video games, like different modalities that like are highly creative, but that aren't exactly like what I do. So yeah, they differentiate early on, and they just, as you know, they're their own people. So
it's always fascinating to me that you can have humans. In my case, I have girl boy twins.
Yeah.
So everything is the same in terms of parents, age, birthday, birth sign, all of it. Genders are different, and you couldn't find two more different people. Yeah. It's just fascinating to me. Yeah, that whole genetic link doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to be the same. Yeah. And what's next for you? Well, so you'll continue in the art world. You've created this beautiful, what I would say, gift to the people. Do you see more creative pursuits that are accessible, or do you think you'll I don't want to put words in your mouth. What do you think's next?
Well, I've been asked, it's interesting, the deck has become like this magic carpet ride that I'm on now. Great. So it's been a year this week since we released it. Oh. And it's taken me to a lot of different places, so much so that I took some yoga teacher training so that I could teach. Like, what's really powerful about the deck we found in public spaces is it's worked really well as like everything from an icebreaker for like YPO dinners to
YPO.
Yeah. So we've hosted quite a few like YPO dinners where I do facilitate like icebreakers or whatever, and eat with EO as well. and not just icebreakers, but what we found really powerful is doing a movement component at the beginning, getting everybody's juices flowing. They're alive, they're awake, they're present, their blood is pumping. And then we've opened up the deck and spent some time journaling and in contemplative practice. And so I kind of lead people through that. So it's like brought me to this place where I've been able to combine spirituality, movement, parks and recreation, teaching, and facilitation, which I've always done. I co-founded a group for female entrepreneurs with a friend, actually, who lives here in Toronto in 2007, before that was even a thing. And we just kept co-creating the kinds of groups that we needed, that we didn't see in the communities that we were in.
Good for you.
And so it was just what we needed at the time. And that I believe that's the best way to create any sort of community that you... If you're like, this is lacking, and 9 of your friends are like, yeah, why don't we have that yet?
Yeah, much more organic.
It's like, that's probably what you need. And so,
I love that you lead. So I'm going to ask you to do that with my YPO group for sure.
Yes, I'd love to.
And it's interesting. I rarely speak to people who contribute and change so much. Like, you've done a lot when you talk about your co-founding woman-focused groups and art and, like the list goes on. Do you ever just get tired and take a break?
I mean, we're talking about things that are spanning over many number of years. Like I no longer do that group. We co-founded that in 2007, coached basketball later on. These are all at different seasons in my life. But my name literally means life, like the life force energy. Okay. And so, yes, everybody who's been very close to me would say that I overfunction at times, don't take good enough care of myself, et cetera, et cetera.
Sounds familiar.
I mean, it's not uncommon for, we're like only the second generation of women who have been working in the workforce, and so it's like second or third, so it's like, in a sort of a really paid leadership capitalist, North American sort of sense. And so it's like, we're, in this second phase of life, like learning how to rest more, et cetera. But I also think it's important to be if you lead the things that you see that are missing. Like Glennon Doyle says, we're the ones we've been waiting for. If we all sit around and are like, God, I wish they had a group for such and such. It's like, well, let's just throw open the living room and see what happens, and it's,
so be the change you want to see in the world.
Exactly. And I think assembling people in a simple sense is one of my gifts. And it's also very simple in some sense. It's like the magic is what happens when they're together, but creating safe places for people to come and connect is I think really important.
Really important. And this is a really weird question. I've never actually thought this before.
Wait.
Okay. Do you find that in your various pursuits, you connect more easily with females than males?
I mean, it's not, it's so interesting. In 2007, we just needed that then. I'm starting to do a lot more men's work right now with yoga and sobriety. And I'm working with all people right now. I think it's all across every spectrum. I'm specifically interested in helping people early on in their sobriety. So it's just it's been a mix.
Good for you. So I grew up with 3 brothers, and I've spoken about this before, but I never really noticed whether I was in a room with men or women. It wasn't something that even registered for me until recent years, where in fact I was with girls last night and they were talking about the importance of sisters. I'm not married, I'm a single person. So they were talking about the importance of sisters, and completely separately in my business life, I've found that men's behavior has changed a lot lately, not necessarily for the better. So I'm starting to think about these themes, like women to me are becoming stronger and more collective. It used to be when I started in business that women would diminish other women to allow themselves space in a room. And I think there's been a huge shift in that way. I don't know if you've seen that too, but I've certainly experienced that.
Yeah, I mean, in the same breath, I think there's a lot of concern right now for young boys. And my concern has been I've had a lot of young teenage boys in and around my life, and my son has struggled on and off over the last 3 years. And my focus, and what I'm recognizing in sobriety when I'm having early conversations with men who are struggling, it's like there's becoming more and more like men's groups and stuff. There's a few in Vancouver which are really cool. They're cold plunge. I think it's really important that they're together with each other and like have camaraderie and fellowship, and they don't have equal access right now, and so it concerns me, and so my priorities have shifted.
If you could go back in time and say to 12-year-old, 14-year-old, 15-year-old Zoe, these are the most important things that I want you to remember as you go through life, what would that be?
Well, I had a really strong spiritual experience when I was 12 years old. Okay. And so I have always heard this voice that has like brought me back to that. Yeah. So I have known, like I've known without a doubt, that there's a higher power. There's, that whole experience that, since I was 12. So I've been able to dip back into that ocean. And I also, this sounds like a strange fact, but my grandmother technically died and then came back to life when she was like 27, 28. She was my best friend. And she unfortunately never got to recover from her alcoholism. And so I had this strange experience of being very close. We were born on the same day, very close to my grandmother. And she explained to me very clearly that there's nothing to be afraid of when you die, because she saw the white light and has, there's shows about what's that called? They call them they call them near-death NDEs or whatever, near-death experiences.
My daughter died 6 times when she was 6 months old and kept coming back.
Whoa, trippy.
She's fine now, touch wood.
Yeah.
But yeah, okay. So are you willing to share your experience when you were 12, or are you? If it's too personal, don't feel that.
Yeah, no, it's not. It's not that. It's not interesting necessarily in and of itself, but it's just that I think one of the most important things when we talk about what I'm learning about youth right now, and what I think matters about teenagers, especially around 12, 13, 14, 15, like that early youth, and even a little later, is that. We're learning now that we don't have a lot of traditions in our contemporary Western culture. When you're saying, for example, that they don't have a lot of role models, it's not only that, but we don't have a lot of like traditions for like shedding like a coming of age experience. And so the reason why it's quite natural to have like a suicidal ideation, for example, because they feel like they're in this like age of disappointment and they don't know what to do with that. And so they don't want to necessarily leave or disappear entirely, but there's this like pain of wanting to shed the old and move into adulthood, and it's incredibly awkward. And we don't have a lot of modalities to support them. Yeah. So I'm seeing a lot of that pain with these young people. And I think that spiritual experience can be the missing ingredient. Like if you think of a sweat lodge, if every young person got to do a sweat lodge which, my God, please, everybody, do not enter that with me. That is not for the faint of heart. Have you done one?
No.
Oh my goodness. Mine was so profound. It was so crazy. I just did it like a couple months ago. And it was, I this was not what I was expecting. It was like ayahuasca, I think, without the ayahuasca. I was like, wow.
I might need a little bit more time to get there.
I did. Well, naivete is like
sometimes it's
such a gift. She's like, just drive to Squamish and turn left on you just walk. We're like some women in a field, and I was like, I can do that.
Oh my God.
Wow, what a profound. I'm still digesting it. It was like a psychedelic experience in the sense of like needing a lot of time for integration afterwards, and I'm still processing what I experienced in there. It was really powerful, especially because it was like without substances, which is like super profound for someone who's sober.
Yeah, it would be. And okay, so I really like that sort of the coming of age and the rituals and the traditions. My son lives in Hawaii. He's 14 years old. He's in boarding school. And it seems like such a culturally rich society. and I can see the benefit to him. So I think you're absolutely on to something. I can't believe we've run out of time. So I feel like we started talking 30 seconds ago. But thank you for being here today.
Oh, it was my pleasure.
And I look forward to getting to know you in the coming week or so.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Thanks, Zoe.
Yeah, my pleasure.